students, it's Matt, and I just want to reach out to you guys really quickly this morning about the parent meeting that happened this past Sunday. I know there was a lot of you guys who wanted to be there, didn't get the opportunity to be there, and so no problem there. We just want to catch you guys up to speed, and if you were there, maybe this will provide you with a good refresher. So I want to talk a little bit really quickly about why our student ministry exists, why we do what we do, and kind of some of the philosophy things behind it. I think that would really help in you understanding why it's important to getting your student out here this summer, getting your student connected with this ministry. So first and foremost, we really focus on really three aspects when it comes to student ministry. We focus in on our relationship with the student, obviously. We would call that maybe connection. But then as well, we have other parts too. It's our programming, whether that be like our wake service or whether that be through some of these summer events we'll talk about in a minute. And then as well, what we believe is maybe the most important part is connection with a life group leader. That adult that's in their life that we know is going to be giving them a godly perspective that's neither pastor nor parent. Why is that important? As you're a teenager, and I'm sure you remember when you're a teenager, there's times where maybe you don't want to go to your mom and dad about something, and there's times where maybe the pastor also is an intimidating thing because you don't want to feel ashamed about something that's going on. So having these life group leaders for your student is a really, really big deal because it provides that other person that can provide a godly perspective, help keep them on the right track, and help keep their faith real. Where they might be afraid to talk to me as a pastor, or they might not want to talk to you as a parent about something that's going on. Now, I said this in the meeting, I want to be very clear on this. We do have a system of confidentiality within our student ministry when it comes to life groups specifically. However, if a student ever comes to us and tells us something that we believe is putting them in danger or putting someone else in danger or putting them in a negative situation, we will reach out to you and let you know as the parent. And we tell them that ahead of time before they start sharing. So that's kind of the system that's set up around our student ministry. Our hope is that they're connecting with their peers, they're connecting with each other as a group, they're connecting with me, they're connecting with other adult life group leaders. But that leads into some relational value that allows us to begin to change the focus of why that student's here. And so our hope is if a student comes in, we're making the assumption maybe they know a little bit about Jesus, or maybe they have a little bit of association with Jesus, but we're making the assumption that they're not as far along in their faith walk as they need to be. So we want to make relational connections first and really try to provide that foundation where they know, okay, I can trust this person, I can trust this ministry, and then move it into a place where we begin to challenge them faith-wise, challenge them to move into that next step and that next focus. And so we have three values in our student ministry. It's a little bit different than other ministries around the church because teenagers are a little bit different than other age groups around the church, right? So we really focus it on three things. We want every student that walks through our doors to be seen, we want them to be heard, and we want them to be loved. We want them to be seen, heard, and loved. What does that mean? When a student walks into any sort of event or student ministry facility, we want them to be welcomed. We want them to know that we see them, okay? And that's so important because I think so often, especially right now with what's going on in the schools and what's going on post-pandemic, students can quickly get lost in the shuffle. It can be just another number, another face, that sort of stuff. So we want them to know that we see them as an individual and we value them as an individual. So we do that through welcome teams. We do that through how we welcome them at events. We do that through text services. We'll do group text that look like it's a personal text for me type thing, and I'm the one who's actually responding. We do all these different things to try to make sure that your student and you know that your family's seen in our student ministry. The second thing is we want them to be heard. We get this from Jesus, where if somebody maybe is in the Bible, in the Gospels, and they interact with Jesus, and they have a physical need or they have something that they need healed, Jesus usually goes about it in a certain way. He goes about it usually hearing their story, he goes about it healing the hurt, and then he goes about it telling them the gospel. And that's where you usually see this almost system with Jesus of he's hearing somebody's story that's usually someone who's not heard. He's healing a hurt, and then he's telling them the gospel. In the same way, that's what we believe we need to be doing. We want to hear your students, because when we hear people, that shows that they have value. We want students to know that they have value. They have value to God, they have value to us, they obviously have value to you as a parent, but sometimes that can get lost in the shuffle, right? And so we try to be very intentional. When a student talks, we listen. okay? And so that is that second value in our student ministry. Third and final value is we want to be loved like Jesus loves us. And so for us, we really believe in John 10:10. God came so that we can have life to the fullest. And so we want to show students this fullness of life. We want it to be attractive to them. We want them to leave youth group feeling like they want to stay around for longer. We want them to be able to have a good time. We also want them to see the values of Jesus reflected in how we act, even if we're not teaching that night, or even if we're not necessarily having any instruction that night. We want it to be one of those things where they're like, man, there's something about those people that I like being around. And that's what we want for the students that are in our youth group. We want it for the students who are visiting our youth group. We want it for our leaders, our sponsors, everybody. We want us to reflect that joy of Christ. And so that's really the why behind the what. And so ultimately, I think the end goal of, are we having success in student ministry? I think it gets down to this. When that student is a senior and they're going off to college, it's that student owning their faith. Or are they still leaning on their parents' faith, right? Have they made a personal decision? Have they decided that they want to continue to grow in their faith as they go into college as an adult? Or are they still trying to lean on mom and dad's faith? And, I do church because it's what I've always done. We find that, the students that really own their faith are the ones that keep their faith into adulthood, okay? And so really what we try to do is we try to teach kids in a biblical way some topics that are really important to them. Like, for example, this past year, we had an entire series that focused in on cancel culture. We use cancel culture as kind of one of those paradigms to try to explain something that's going on, but move it into a place where they see, but this is how Jesus acts instead. This is how the people of Jesus acts instead. And so you can be a positive influence in your school. If someone is getting canceled, here's what you can do to encourage them. And so it's that same idea of us moving these kids, empowering them to be the disciples in their school and in this nation, okay? And so moving from that, we're getting into the summer, right? And so maybe you've seen one of these, maybe you've not. This is a bigger version, but this is the summer calendar. And so it goes from May to August, okay? And we have some specific events I want to talk about and give you some explanation on, okay? So if you haven't received one of these, I tried to hand them out personally in the main foyer a couple of Sundays ago. We've had them at the Student Ministry Info Center, both outside of the Awake Room and in the Next Gen hallway, and we've even had some at the Information Center over in the main foyer. But there's some key things that you need to know for the summer. And I want you to remember the premise of why we do what we do, okay? The why is we want to connect with your student. If we don't have a relationship with your student, if your student doesn't know us, there's never going to be that moment of them picking up the phone or texting another adult, whether it be me or a life group leader, when they're having a faith struggle. They're just not going to talk about it. We feel like if we can have those conversations with them, there's a higher likelihood of that end goal of them leaving this church when they're an adult and them owning their faith. And so that's really what we're going after. So a big piece of that is that first piece I talked about at the very beginning, is connection. And so this summer we're really focused in on connection. Every summer we try to focus in on connection. Building the group together, making them feel like they want to be around each other, making them feel like this is what the community of the church, this is what the community of Christ feels like, okay? And so this summer we're really focused on a few different things. I want to start off with Wednesday nights. Every Wednesday night we're going to be having an event of some sort. It's a themed event. So for example, if you look on June 9th on the calendar, that's the summer kickoff. And it's basically what that's going to be is, if you can imagine like a field day type of event, we're going to have food, we're going to have a campfire, we're going to have a lot of different stuff going on. We're going to have things called knocker balls, which are these big inflatable balls you get into and can run into each other. It's kind of like bumper cars with balls, if you can imagine that. But basically, we really just want the students to come and have a good time and connect with one another and just enjoy being at youth group, saying, this is somewhere I want to be. That's the design of Wednesday nights. We want it to be something that is very simple for them to bring their friends to. We want it to be something that is very simple for them to come out to. It's not going to have to be this thing where you're dragging them along. We want it to be very fun, engaging. We want them to connect with us, okay? And so I would say this, if you have a student and maybe they haven't been to one of our Awake services or they haven't been to a small group night and you're wanting to get them to connect, I think a Wednesday night would be excellent for them. I would definitely encourage you, at the very least, summer kickoff, back to school bash in August. Those would be great ways to connect your student to this ministry. However, if your student is a big part of this ministry and they're here every Sunday, still these events are going to be very big for them. We're going to really be using them to try to implement more people into our youth group, more students that maybe aren't as connected. We're going to use your student to minister to other students, okay? And so it's going to be a great time. I'm really excited about these Wednesday night events, and so that's every week, 6 to 8, and we're going to be sending out social media posts. We're going to be sending out emails weekly, letting you know what to expect at these different events, texts as well, and on the calendar there's write-ups as well. So I would just encourage you, make sure that your student is out to these Wednesday night events. I think it's going to be a really good time for them. I think it will be something that gets them out of the house, but I also think it's going to be something they really enjoy. The other piece is on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock. For those students who really want to go deeper, who are serious about growing their faith, we're going to be having a Bible study. We've done this in the past. We've called it Coffee and Jesus, okay? But we're going to be doing it here at the church. And so if your student's interested in knowing more about the Bible or growing deeper in their faith, it's going to be myself and whoever shows up, okay? And so we're going to have a good time. I feel like it's going to be a season of growth this summer. But every Tuesday this summer, except the exception of CIY week, we're going to be having a Bible study, and we're going through the book of John. So I would just highly encourage you as a parent, if you feel like your student is wanting to grow in their faith or want to go deeper in their faith, this is going to be a very intentional time where we're focused on relationship. We're talking about real problems, real situations, but we're also talking through God's Word and the solutions that He provides, okay? So that's every Tuesday this summer at 10 in the morning here at Chapel Hill. The third and final thing that's going to be like a reoccurring thing, I'm really focused this summer. We have a lot younger of a group. We have a lot of 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, middle school kids that I feel like haven't gotten a great opportunity to really connect with me, especially with COVID-19 happening last year and into this year, things still being a little bit wonky with schedule and those sort of things. So I'm really trying to make a point to get to know your student better. And so what I'm trying to do is focus in on certain groups of kids. So for example, the first one is on June 12th, I believe. Yeah, June 12th, that first Saturday in June. We're gonna be going go-kart racing. And it's $10 a kid, and it's gonna be a good time, but it's for all of our student ministry guys. So if you're a guy and you're student ministry age and you wanna go with us, show up, bring $10, we're gonna go go-karting, we're gonna have a good time. I think it's just really important for your students to see me as someone who's a person, not just a pastor. And so I think that helps bridge that gap to them understanding I can trust this person. This person's a real person. This person's not just paid to hang out with me. This person actually cares about me. So this summer you're going to see on the calendar there's a lot of different events that we have for specific age groups. Some are just middle school only, some are high school only, some are middle school guys only. You know, we're just rotating around, just trying to get as much exposure to your student as possible. You know, I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was Dave Kimmerman from the Barna Group, and he was just talking about there was an astounding number of previous students. So these are people in their early 20s to 30s, okay, that they were interviewing for a study on generations, and they were talking about their experience with church. And one of the things that they talked about was the fact that they felt as though their pastors and their ministers were usually friendly, were usually wanting to connect with them, usually cared about them, but there was a reluctancy on their part because they believed, oh, this person's paid to care about me. And so I just want you as a parent to recognize that's probably going to be the case with your kid in some ways, but as well, let's work together. Let's push on both ends. Let's push as a parent, I'll push as a student minister to try to get together, because I can tell you right now that's not where I'm at as a pastor. I desire to get to know your kids. I desire to see life change in them. I desire to see them grow in their faith. My goal is every single kid that comes through our student ministry, at the end of the day, we can say they own their faith as they're going into college and into that next phase of life. And so I would just encourage you to get them there. It takes getting them there. You know, so this summer, this is probably the easiest that it will be. It's not a Sunday morning. It's not during school. I know there's a lot of travel ball. I know there's a lot of different stuff going on, but I would just encourage you. I'm not saying get your student to every event and make them come to every event or anything like that nature. Just pick a few dates on this calendar and try to really push them to go out there. And we'll come on the back end and we'll really push to try to connect with them relationally. But I think if they come out here and they have the experience that I think they're going to have, I think they're going to stick around And I think that'll bring a likelihood of them retaining their faith into adulthood that much higher. So guys, I would encourage you finally, if you have any questions or if you need any clarification, my email is medwards@chapelhillcc.church. Email me anytime. I'm totally fine with questions, or even if you have suggestions, I don't care. Okay, as well, my phone number is 765-860-0459 if you prefer to reach out to me that way. I just want to be a resource for you guys, and I hope that we can make this summer one of the best ones ever for our student ministry. We love you guys, and we thank you so much for allowing us to disciple your students.